So good morning. I am Dante Ang, the President and CEO of the Manila Times. We're fortunate to have today here the Pakistani Ambassador to Manila, Dr. Imtiaz Akhmad Kazi.
I'm glad to meet your team at the very prestigious Manila Times.
Sir, first, before we start, maybe we can ask you, what's the situation in Pakistan today? I noticed that Pakistan is, I think, doing better in managing the COVID in the Philippines right now. Your cases are lower. And what's keeping you busy these days?
I just want to share that, yes, when I came last year in November, early November, Pakistan and the Philippines were almost matching, parallel to each other in terms of number of COVID affectees, as well as the number of deaths, and recovery rate was almost the same. Thankfully, last year, summer was not so bad for Pakistan. We had very few cases. Our maximum high peak was 4,000 cases in a day in summer last year, when world were witnessing many of the countries in the developed world were having much bigger numbers. And neighboring India was also approaching 50, 60,000 cases per day. And when I compare it today, after 5 months of stay here, I think that probably God forbid us all and God protect us all. But I see that the numbers in Philippines have surpassed much. They are reaching now around 1 million here. I think morbidity rate is also lesser than here. But again, it's a challenge for both of our countries.
Right. Wow. Sir, let me backtrack a bit and ask you ask you about some of the international events that we've been following in the media. By the way, I had the chance to visit your country several years ago and had written a number of stories about Pakistan's efforts in fighting terrorism. It was quite an eye-opener to see that you guys are actually at the front lines. Now, what we heard in the media is the U.S. announcement to pull out of Afghanistan. What will be the impact of that in your region of the world? How is Pakistan reacting to that?
You cannot change geography. Pakistan was imposed a war upon 40 years ago when the then Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan in December 1979. We were forced to become a frontline state in that part of the world. And it was a long drawn battle of next 8-9 years in which Pakistan also suffered. But some people now take credit that, yes, it was the Pakistan's struggle, of course, supported by international coalition, that the Soviet Union withdrew under Geneva Accords in 1989. But then things did not work out well in Afghanistan. And we all know this, how through different phases of chaos and instability that country has gone. Despite Pakistan being its neighbor and our best efforts, that there should be some stability. And we have always supported an Afghan-led and Afghan-owned peace initiatives. And we have always supported, whether it be the US initiatives, NATO initiatives, these Moscow format these days is being talked about. And then Turkey has this Heart of Asia process, of Istanbul process, they call it. So Pakistan has joined almost every forum that has wanted betterment in Afghanistan. And Pakistan has been immediate neighbor, being the immediate neighbor, has been at the forefront of every effort to facilitate these endeavors regionally, globally, bilaterally. We have so many mechanisms with Afghanistan. We have tried to work with when there were Taliban. We have tried to work post-Taliban scenario. We have now a strong institutional mechanism, which is called Afghanistan-Pakistan Action Plan for Peace and Solidarity. Now, this plan has started working since last 2 years. And this agreement, which was signed between the US and Taliban 29 February 2020 in Doha, which paved the way for the start of intra-Afghan negotiations, and which has brought all Afghan stakeholders into a peace process. Pakistan has really worked behind the scenes very hard to bring these parties together in Doha. And we believe this is a very historic opportunity for all the parties to seize this opportunity. And international community must remain engaged with Afghanistan in its reconstruction and economic development in post-conflict years. So we have already a burden. I would not say a burden. We have brotherly people of Afghanistan who in their peak time were 6-point-something million, the world's largest number of refugees in 80s. Still half of them are there with us. 3.2 million Afghan refugees, they are there with us. And we want a dignified return for all of them once the things settle down in Afghanistan. So peace in Afghanistan, stability in Afghanistan is actually peace in Pakistan and stability in Afghanistan. And we really want to see this peace in that part of the world now. And we are working for it the way we have worked for all along these years after Soviet pullout.
Yeah, I'm sure you know that some we share your problems. In fact, some Filipinos may be surprised that the MNLF leaders and some leaders, I believe, of the MILF had fought in Afghanistan, and they probably went through Pakistan, right? And so the sooner we see peace in that region, I think the better for the rest of the world. But how does that? I'm sure you're happy with that. Does that help you out with your problem to the south with India and Kashmir? What's the situation there?
Well, to be honest, Kashmir is an internationally recognized disputed territory between India and Pakistan to be resolved. When Pakistan and India were partitioned in 1947 on the eve of British Raj departure from the subcontinent, two new nations came. One was India, one was Pakistan. And it was agreed under the partition plan that all the princely states, which included Kashmir, and there were 586 of them, they were to be divided based on their geographical proximity, as well as the population, demographic composition, whether if they are Muslim, they would join Pakistan. If they are Hindu, they would join India. Kashmir has all along historically been adjacent to Pakistan. So, and it was, I think, more than 90% of people in Kashmir Valley were Muslims. But the Maharaja was Hindu. And there is a so-called instrument of accession, which India believes that they had, under which the Maharaja invited Indians. But we call it Indian occupation when they landed their forces on 27th October 1947 in Kashmir Valley. So the tribals from Pakistani areas, northern areas, went back to fight India and got a part of Kashmir liberated, which is called Azad Kashmir or Liberated Kashmir, which is with Pakistan. But we don't call it part of Pakistan. We say it is according to UN resolutions for which India had gone to UN General Assembly in 1948. Prime Minister Nehru had gone there with this case. And then there are more than a dozen resolutions which call for an independent and fair plebiscite in the region, which should decide, the people of the region should decide whether they want to join Pakistan or India. It is not a question of territory only, it's a question of right of self-determination.
Right.
In the modern days, we cannot deny this right. If East Timor can have this independence, if Southern Sudan can have this independence, why not people of Kashmir be given their right to choose their destiny? So Pakistan has always believed in the centrality of UN resolutions, but at the same time, we have always advocated that if India wants to have bilateral format, we are always ready to accept any formula, bilaterally, regionally, or under international auspices. We have been, so this struggle has been going on. Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Nehru, until he was alive in 1964, he died. He had all along been sending assurances to UN, to Pakistan, through various communications, that I stand by my plebiscite. There is a UN observer group, also military observer group on the borders, line of control, what they call. But then India never had this thing. In 1970s, they annexed this part according to their constitution, that it is integral part of India, which was a violation of the internationally recognized territory. What they have done 2 years ago in August 5th August 2019, they have unilaterally annexed this occupied Kashmir, what we call Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. They have annexed this as part of the Union territory, bypassing all the international moral diplomatic norms, decisions, resolutions, and the aspirations and wishes of the people, unilaterally. Pakistan has never said that the part that it is under its administration or control is part of Pakistan. According to our constitution, it is a disputed territory, including the parts that we have. They need to be decided by the people under a fair plebiscite. So Pakistan always stands for a principled stance for right of self-determination for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. And we are ready to go to any forum bilaterally. President Trump tried to twice, three times. He tried to introduce this thing that I want to mediate, President Trump. But what happened? Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, he was on visit to Washington. In front of the international media, he realized that Mr. Trump is offering this thing to mediate. Oh, mediate means the aspirations of the people. What they did on 5th August 2019, they abolished its independent status, which was given according to Indian Constitution. It has a special status, even in Indian Constitution, despite having annexed it. It had a special autonomous independent status, which they abolished it. Now, being a union territory, which they have done forcefully, they have tried to give domicile to 3 million people. Indian soldiers have got domicile to be residents of Kashmir. Under the scheme before 2019, only locals could get local jobs, locals could buy local lands. Now, every Indian from Union Territory can come and buy any land, and all the jobs of the state are also open for all Indians. Their administrative service officers have got domiciles. The Indians who are migrating. So this demographic change is what they are bringing now, the way Israelis did in Palestinian territories. Demographic changes, remove them out, keep them out of that, so that demographically it becomes pure Jewish nation. Exactly the same pattern they have followed. And we worry that now with this marginalization, this dilution of the population, bringing in more Hindus, they're investors, and we know they are capable of bringing in mega ventures and plazas and hotels. It's a beautiful valley on earth. Someday they want to change the demographic structure of Jammu and Kashmir, so that if somebody like President Trump tries to offer his mediation, we can say, look, here are people, here are millions of Indians brought in through this domain. 3 million in just 2 years. I'm giving you a small figure. 3 million people have been given these domiciles, and they have introduced some brutal, barbaric laws, which they have imposed on the local Kashmiris for even simple crimes and mass graves, and young people above the ages of 13. Thousands of them they are disappeared suddenly. Their mass graves have been found out during the last 2 years. So it's worst kind of humanitarian and human rights situation in that part of the world. I want to bring through this interview to the notice of Southeast Asian people, what is the plight of Kashmiris and what needs to be done. International community must come forward to resolve this long-standing dispute between the two countries. And we are ready to go 2 steps for it.
Is the Philippines doing something? Has it reached out? I know the Philippines is a friend of both Pakistan and India. In fact, our government was the first to recognize your independence. And I remember that President Diosdado Macapagal went to Pakistan and visited your country. And there has been many visits from our country to yours and from your leaders to ours in the past. Maybe the Philippines can step in and play that moderator role, or that peacemaking role. What do you think?
Philippines is a very important country for us, and you're right, sir. I can say we started off in 1949 when your country opened. It was the first countries which recognized Pakistan, one of the foremost first countries which recognized Pakistan at its independence in 1947. You opened a consulate in Karachi, which was after 7 years became into embassy, converted to an embassy. Karachi was the capital of Pakistan then. And we remember we joined the US-led anti-communist blocs of those times, SEATO, Southeast Asia Treaty. Pakistan's Prime Minister Hussein Shahid Sarwardi was in Philippines in 1957, first ever official visit by a Prime Minister of the United Pakistan, when Bangladesh was also part of East Pakistan.
Yes.
Which now Mr. Modi claimed that he was instrumental, his party and his machinations, in breaking Pakistan in 1971. We are happy with our Bangladeshi brothers. We have very good relations with that country. But we are sad to learn that some neighboring country claims that they were instrumental in breaking up of a country, a Muslim country, which had been evolved in 1947 based on Islamic identity together. So these things sadden us, to be honest. But then we have very excellent cooperation from 1950s. And it was there that in 1962, President Macapagal had visited Pakistan also. We have all along very excellent relations. We appreciate the Philippines' role and the positive role for both Pakistan and India. They have tried to keep a very fair balance between the two countries. because India is also established country. It has historic relations with East Asian countries, and we have trade relations. You have some connectivity through ASEAN also, because India is summit partner with ASEAN. We are still sectoral dialogue partner. So these are international relations, but we are still glad that your country has always been at the forefront to positively support Pakistan in these issues. And we really value this gesture, these sentiments. And Philippines is one of the brotherly countries. We have security cooperation. I was presenting my credentials. Your President, Honorable Duterte, President Rodrigo Duterte mentioned about security, intelligence sharing cooperation. And he said we want to strengthen these ties further. Historically, and I think our Prime Minister Madam Aquino and Benazir Bhutto had met at some international forums. Then she visited here in 1995. Pakistan's Prime Minister Junejo visited in 1989 here in May. Then President Musharraf visited in 2005 when they signed this memorandum on terrorism, cooperation on terrorism and certain crimes. So we have excellent cooperation on many issues. But the issue is such a complex nature, Kashmir issue, that it's not a question of one country being able to pressurize or to exert efforts. It's an issue which needs pressure from all the big, all the stakeholders who can matter in it. Philippines is one of the important countries of ASEAN. ASEAN has an important role to play. ASEAN, we are there in ARF Forum, ASEAN Regional Forum. India is a member. And so I think these are issues, regional issues. World has the realization of these issues. But because of the long time has passed, some countries think that Pakistan and India should do bilaterally resolve it, because it otherwise compromises their own trade relations with India, big relations. So we are glad that in the present context, Pakistan and India had frozen relations after 5th August 2019 unilateral declaration by India. I'm glad that UAE has played a role, as you might have read in the media, in early January this year. And the two countries, the military leaders, DG military operations have contacted there. Some other contacts have been made in UAE. And through the mediation of UAE, I think there is a hope of restoration of ambassadors, which has not been there since 2019. And they have also made ceasefire at the line of control, which had seen very brutal violations from the other side. 3,000, more than 3,000, 4,000 violations in a year from the other side we saw, and we responded them adequately, but it was not good in the interest of peace. So we are seeing that some countries in the region are playing some role, but still it needs a lot of efforts. It's not only management of the conflict, it is ultimately the resolution of the issue, which is the core issue between Pakistan and India. I'm sure once it is settled or resolved, there is a lot of potential like ASEAN between the countries, 7 countries of, we call SAARC, Southeast Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, since 1985. And so that's why we want a solution of Kashmir as early as possible. And we are ready on all forums, bilaterally, regionally, and we appreciate the efforts of the UAE, and we look forward that Philippines, in whichever capacity it can, we will certainly welcome any brotherly country like Philippines or ASEAN countries to come forward and see if they can assist both India and Pakistan in the resolution of this issue.
Thank you, Ambassador. I'd like to bring in my colleagues now. I know that, for example, Dempsey has questions about a defense cooperation. You mentioned you just mentioned your discussion with our President Duterte, and you also mentioned something about ASEAN. I'll bring in our other reporter later on, but let's start with Dempsey.
Good morning, Mr. Ambassador. I am Dempsey, and I am covering the military for the Manila Times. And my question is, you mentioned about the President Duterte's willingness, to expand the defense cooperation between the Philippines and Pakistan. My question is, how are we doing on that right now, and how does the Pakistan and the Philippines? I mean, how does the Pakistan plan to expand its defense cooperation with the Philippines, and would there be arrangements like information sharing for the sake of counterterrorism, exchanges of soldiers, and common trainings between the two militaries of Pakistan and the Philippines?
Thank you. I'm glad you asked this question. Let me tell you that when I presented my credentials to President Duterte at Malacanang
Yes.
last year in December, the very first sentence that he mentioned after my brief statement, he started off, and if you allow me to quote, he said, and it is available on YouTube, by the way, that statement from your president. It says, let me extend our military to military exchanges and sharing of intelligence and best practices, particularly in countering terrorism and violence. While I had appreciated President for his far-sighted policies, which had brought good dividends in Mindanao, stability and peace for all the stakeholders, his policies, he also appreciated our military to military cooperation. So this is something we value. And we already have excellent cooperation in this field. Although we are both developing countries, we depend on others. But I can tell you that you have this modernization program, revised armed forces of the Philippines modernization program. Probably second phase is going on between 2018 to 2023. It is almost $6 billion program, which is going on. You are looking for surveillance radars, some utility aircraft, some unmanned vehicles. I'm glad that you have reopened your defense wing in the Embassy of Philippines in Islamabad in February last year. There are chances that we might reciprocate by bringing in our own defense attaché very soon here in Philippines. At the moment, our defense attaché in Kuala Lumpur is concurrently looking after the defense relations of Pakistan and Philippines. But there is a lot of scope. The good thing is that both forces enjoy cordial and friendly relations and interaction and visits at senior military leadership level. We have seen it. Even President Duterte mentioned in his remarks during my credentials that he had been impressed and when he had visited the PNSF in December 2017. So our naval ships come regularly every year. Okay. So we have a program, MOU is under consideration between our two countries on defense cooperation. And we are having these bilateral and multilateral activities. Actually, there were some activities, if you allow me, you have asked this question. There were some activities planned as usual for the year 2020, but because of COVID, they were actually postponed or canceled. I can mention some of those. We have a flag officer in command, Philippine Navy's visit to Pakistan, which was postponed. They had to come for a regular 2-year exercise called Aman, peace exercise by Pakistan Navy. It concluded 2 months ago. So it was in December actually, and the Philippine ships could not go there. Likewise, Pakistan Navy's 2 ships come here. They were supposed to come in June last year for the International Fleet Review, IFR, in Manila, but they could not come because of COVID. Then there is a dignitary and PN delegation for Western Pacific Naval Symposium, which was supposed to be held in Manila in May last year. So our delegation had to come at a very senior level, which has not been able to come. Then there is National Defense University of Pakistan, where we also offer seats to Filipino colleagues. And I have been part of that institute before coming to Kazakhstan 3 years ago. I was part of directing staff and faculty of National Defense University. From Foreign Ministry, I had been loaned by the NDU. They sent a delegation, foreign study tour, which could not come last year. Then we were supposed to join the Pakistani's Asian Defense, Security and Crisis Management. It is ADAS, Defense, Security and Crisis Management Exhibition 2020. And then this Pacific Naval Symposium was supposed to be rescheduled in October, which could not happen. So we have missed those ones. But yet we were able to do certain things. I can tell you that Pakistan Navy's 2 representatives participated in 29th Western Pacific Naval Symposium, which was held in February 2020 last year. Then our Navy representatives came in final planning conference of IFR, which is International Fleet Review, and Western Pacific Symposium 2020, which was held on 27 February in Manila. Then there have been some training activities. One PakistanAir Force officer is doing his master's in National Security and Administration course at National Defense College of the Philippines. We have also got an offer for another officer to come here. And next year, we are going to send some more officers here at your National Defense College. Okay. And likewise, in the Air Force, we have some of the best equipment manufactured in Pakistan's aeronautical complex in Kamra. And your Air Force is looking for some of those equipment, which are very quality-wise proven And there may be a possibility that when we share these experiences, we can have these our equipment sent to Philippines, which is very competitive and very effective one, especially some of the planes that Pakistan has started making. They are really compatible and comparable with F-16s of the US that we have. But our planes, now we call it JF-17 Thunder. They are much better in performance than even F-16s that we got from the US starting in Soviet invasion in mid-1980s. We have improvised even upon those F-16s. So Pakistan has got some capability in the airfield, and which your Air Force is looking forward under modernization program. I think there is a lot of potential. There's a lot of scope. We are looking forward to see Pakistan Defense Attaché to open an office here very soon. And we are sure to make some progress. And as your president mentioned, military to military exchanges. Why not? We have done it in cooperation in terrorism, intelligence sharing, in eliminating terrorism. I can tell you that when I came here in December, I got a note from your police, National Police Chief Offices, one of his deputies, one Major General. He sent me a note that they have started a Salam Peace Center, which is to bring the moderation. Islam tells people to be moderate, don't be extremist. The way these extremists, Abu Sayyaf, Al-Qaeda, Taliban, these people have radicalized the youth all around the globe through those cells. But Islam always teaches moderation, peace, and resolve your issues through peace. And that's where they have established. I'm glad that Philippine National Police has this Salam Peace Center. They have asked me to give them best practices from Pakistan. I've told them that I'm ready to come and share with them our experiences. We have in Pakistan an entity called NACTA. When there was an attack in Peshawar school, Army Public School in Peshawar in 2014, December 2014, 140 innocent children were killed by these extremists in just few minutes. Then we had, our whole nation had a consensus parliament, all political parties, all military and security and law enforcement agencies. They put up together a plan called National Action Plan and a National Counterterrorism Authority called NACTA. They have devised some beautiful de-radicalization programs to prevent extremism and violence. I'm ready to share those modules, those packages with the authorities in the Philippines, especially with your police. And I'm looking forward that we can have much better cooperation in the days ahead. Actually, our seat of ambassador remained vacant. My predecessor left in September 2019. There was no ambassador until November when I joined here. So it has been a very, very unusual gap of almost 18 months. There was no ambassador. And it's a small mission. But I'm here to fill those gaps with my colleagues and my team here. And I look forward that we will have excellent security cooperation, intelligence sharing, military exchanges, and at some point, I wish to see that your leadership should go to Pakistan.
Yes.
Of course, conducive circumstances are not conducive, but the last president who visited Pakistan from this country was President Fidel Ramos in 1997. And then Pakistan's last president who visited Philippines was President Musharraf, General Pervez Musharraf in 2005. So if you take from both ends, it's almost 24 years when some leader visited from here, and some 17 years, 16 years when some leader visited from Pakistan. So I look forward that someday when COVID eases out, if President Duterte or his successor can visit Pakistan, and then leadership levels visits provide us some opportunities to ink some MOUs, and defense and security would be one of my priorities.
Sir, Ambassador, so how imminent are those those transactions? Are they about to happen? I mean, how soon will we see Pakistani jet planes flown by the Philippine Air Force? Is that something imminent, or is that something that's preliminary in talks?
You see, we are, again, I would say we have a very competitive age. We have developed some equipment, aerial equipment, even in the armored forces and naval. We have relied on our intelligence technology. We were under sanctions in 1989. After Soviets left, United States put Brown Amendment, Pressler Amendment due to our nuclear program. And we were under sanctions, stringent sanctions in Pakistan, despite being ally, until we became the most non-NATO ally, the most important non-NATO ally after 2001, 9/11, when we joined war on terror. So those 10 years were and we were under stringent sanctions. And yet we had to respond to India's nuclear explosions in 1998, and we openly declared our nuclear detonations in 1998. But we have indigenously developed some capabilities we can share with all friendly countries to whichever extent we can for the interest of promotion of peace and to eliminate terrorism. And Philippines is one of the brotherly countries. But again, I would say your country is also a mutual defense treaty ally of the United States. So we have learned some technology from America. We have some technology from China. I always say that Pakistan and Philippines are the two countries in the world which have so many things in common, because we are religious based. We value our religions which teach peace. Christianity or Islam, true religions teach peace. We are most populous. We are manpower exporting countries. We both countries have 11 billion export diaspora manpower, almost equal numbers of Pakistanis and Filipinos working abroad. We have so many things in common. I've realized it. I find Manila like Karachi, my second home here, whenever I landed here. So we are the two countries which have a strategic partnership at the same time with the US and China. Philippines signed a strategic partnership agreement with China in 2018 when President Xi visited here in November. Pakistan is also balancing a very beautiful relationship with both these countries, China and the US. You have a mutual defense treaty since 1951. So our capabilities, our sources of having these equipment are almost the same. But still, there is a lot of scope. It would be a modest cooperation, but if we can, why not? We should do it. I'm sure once this MOU, which is under active consideration between Pakistan and the Philippines, MOU on defense cooperation, and once it is finalized, and once our defense attaché is here, we can have a lot of scope. I am not saying when jets would actually fly or what jets would fly, but there is always a scope, always a possibility. Maybe you have your own equipment and we can share our best practices to modify our own equipment, to share those know-how and technologies. So we have scope to share in the interest of peace and elimination of terrorism and extremism.
I understand that Pakistan is aware about the situation in the Philippines, especially in counterterrorism efforts, counterinsurgency. How does Pakistan want to contribute for peace in Mindanao, and what kind of assistance does Pakistan wants to provide the Philippines in achieving this goal of peace in Mindanao?
Pakistan was born in 1947 based on a theory which was called two-nation theory. When we Muslims of the subcontinent, having realized difficulties that under Hindu domination, on 1937 elections of the British Raj, when Muslims of South Asia could not offer prayers in the mosque, when they were brutally, because of being minority, Muslim minority, they were suppressed and they were forced to sing the Hindu anthem in the schools, Muslim children, Bande Mataram. When they used to pray in the mosque, the pig or swine heads were thrown in front of the prayer ranks in front of them. So we had realized that Muslims cannot live under Hindu domination in India, even when Britishers leave. That's why Pakistan became the first Islamic Republic on the earth with the name of Islamic Republic of Pakistan, which is our official title. And Pakistan, even in 1945, we had raised the issue of Palestine. Our leadership is still in the making. They had supported the Palestinian cause in 1945. When I was in Kazakhstan, Kazakh brothers thanked me that your Muslim League, which was the founding party for Pakistan, All India Muslim League, they had supported when Soviet Union was suppressing Kazakh Muslims, Uyghurs and others in that part of the world under the Stalin's gulags and those programs. The Pakistani Muslims had supported them, and many migrated in Pakistan and Iran, and their descendants are still living in Pakistan, Kazakh Muslims. So Pakistan has always espoused Islamic causes. Pakistan has also supported Philippines in getting observer status for the OIC, Islamic Countries Organization based in Jeddah. We want, because we have a major Muslim population here. So we have always looked for Muslim betterment in anywhere on the earth. If there are some Muslims who have had some difficulties, we have always felt for them. Let me tell you frankly and candidly, Not that it is because of only Islam, it is human sentiment. When there is something wrong with Rohingyas, I'm sure when their houses are burnt, you feel the same pain, irrespective of being you are Christian or Muslim or secular. When some human beings are suppressed somewhere, one feels the pain. So maybe there were times when these things, I don't know, it is internal affairs. I'm not saying anything about this, but some things happen when some communities feel suppressed, then the pain is felt by peer communities outside. But we are happy. And we have never supported terrorism. It is good that Pakistan has exchanged intelligence sharing with your government, your country, your armed forces. They have a great contribution in bringing peace, Philippine armed forces and national police. You have given sacrifices the way we have given to bring peace in that part of the world. What your president has done after coming into power in 2016, this is really a great achievement. We value this. This is what I had expressed in my statement at the Malacanang also. And we wish to see that this process continues, this basic organic law, this transition, whichever way the people of the region want. Not that we want, we outsiders have no right to tell people to do things. No, not even in Afghanistan. I said, we want Afghan-led, Afghan-owned negotiations and peace process. We can only facilitate things. Pakistan is part of those efforts, Turkey and other Muslim countries, which want to see improvement in the conditions. The decision makers is you people, your country, your format, how you Filipinos, as Filipinos, whether Muslims, Christians, or others, you have to decide. But we always appreciate when there is peace in all parts of your country. Pakistan would want to see, number one, that international help in rebuilding Marawi, and we all support whatever international help comes to that country besides your own government's help. We also think, my government, I would suggest that we should build some hospital, and Pakistan has a forte in cement. We have some good agreements. Pakistani cement is coming here. We can donate some cement for some construction projects in the Mindanao region, and periodic rice shipments for Marawi, for Cotabato, for Muslims. But all these would be directed, whatever I'm going to recommend to my government would be through the Ministry or Department of Foreign Affairs. We know there is a channel. We have been told all the diplomatic missions that any assistance or anything that goes there, it should go through Department of Foreign Affairs. And I think there's a lot of things we can do as Pakistanis, as Muslims, as brothers of the Philippines, not only for Muslims, but even otherwise. It's my mandate to increase and fortify relations between our two countries in every field, economic, political, and people to people and culture. So we intend to have some things, and even COVID offers an opportunity. But since we are also getting from same sources vaccinations, but at some point I look forward that the way these new strains are coming, we might share cooperation in COVID-19 related things also.